My fiancé hired an actor to play his father at our engagement dinner party. I thought I was meeting my future father-in-law, but midway through dessert, he forgot his own son's name. Not a nickname, not a childhood story. His name. He lifted his wine glass, smiled across the table and said, "You've made Kevin very proud." My fiancé's name was Nathan. For 1 second, no one moved. The silverware stopped. The waiter froze with the coffee pot in his hand. Nathan's mother coughed into her napkin so hard it sounded painful. And the man sitting at the head of the table, the man Nathan had spent 3 years telling me had abandoned him, went pale under the warm restaurant lights. Nathan laughed too quickly. "He means me," he said. Dad's always mixed up names when he's nervous. But his hand under the table tightened around mine until my fingers hurt. That was the first time I understood something was wrong. Not awkward, not uncomfortable. Wrong. I had spent months imagining that dinner. Nathan and I had been together for 3 years. He was charming in the way people noticed immediately, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and asked questions that made you feel studied in a good way. When he proposed, I cried before he finished asking. I loved him. I trusted him. And because I trusted him, I accepted the one empty space in his life he never let me touch. His father. Nathan told me his father had left when he was 16, disappeared after an ugly divorce, and only reached out a few times a year with short, guilty messages. He said his mother hated talking about it. He said the wound was old but not healed. So when he told me his father wanted to come to our engagement dinner, I thought it meant something beautiful. "He wants to try," Nathan said, watching my face carefully. "For us." I believed him. I even bought a new dress. The man who arrived that night looked exactly like the kind of father Nathan had described. Tall, gray at the temples, expensive watch, quiet guilt in his eyes. He hugged Nathan stiffly. Then he hugged me and said, "You must be the woman who changed everything." I remember feeling moved. By dessert, I felt cold. After the name slip, Nathan pushed through the rest of the dinner like nothing had happened. He talked louder than usual. His mother barely spoke. His father smiled when appropriate, but he stopped volunteering details. Every answer he gave sounded safe. Too safe. "Where did you grow up?" "Mostly around here." "What did Nathan love as a kid?" "Oh, he was always busy." "What was he like in high school?" "A handful." Nothing specific. No memories. No stories. No proof he had ever known the man sitting beside me. When we got home, Nathan dropped his keys in the bowl by the door and said, "Well, that was intense." I stood in the hallway with my coat still on. "Why did your father call you Kevin?" Nathan turned slowly. "I told you." "He was nervous. He forgot your name. He hasn't been in my life much." "That explains distance, not your name." His face changed then, not anger, calculation. "I know tonight was a lot," he said softly. "Please don't turn one awkward moment into something bigger." I hated how reasonable he sounded. I hated that part of me wanted to apologize, so I said nothing. I went to bed beside him and stared at the ceiling while he slept like a man with nothing to hide. At 2:13 in the morning, I got up. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then I opened my laptop. Nathan and I shared a cloud folder for wedding plans, guest lists, venue quotes, deposit receipts, engagement photos. He had always been organized, almost obsessively so. I searched his father's name first. Richard Vale, nothing. Then I searched the restaurant name, thinking maybe I would find a receipt or message thread. Still nothing strange. I almost closed the laptop. Then I saw a folder I didn't recognize. It was labeled Dinner Assets. At first, I thought it was menus or decorations. Inside were 3 files. One was a PDF invoice. One was a headshot. One was a document titled Character Notes. My stomach tightened before I opened anything. The headshot loaded first. It was the man from dinner. Same gray hair, same controlled smile, same expensive-looking face. But his name under the photo was not Richard Vale. It was Grant Holly's, professional actor. The invoice was from a boutique casting agency. Booked appearance. Private family event. Role, estranged father. Date, our engagement dinner. Paid in full by Nathan Vale. I sat there with my hand over my mouth, staring at the screen while my pulse hammered in my ears. Then I opened the character notes. Richard Vale, estranged father. Left when Nathan was 16. Quiet regret. Avoid detailed childhood memories. Show warmth toward fiancé. Do not discuss divorce. Do not discuss real family. Do not mention Kevin. Kevin, that name was in the notes, not a mistake. A warning. A mistake they had prepared for and still failed to avoid. I read the invoice again. The booking date was 3 weeks before Nathan proposed. Not after, before. That meant his father's sudden reappearance had never happened. It had been part of the proposal plan, part of the story, part of convincing me that Nathan was ready to build a family. I backed away from the table like the laptop might burn me. Then I heard Nathan behind me. "What are you doing?" I turned. He stood in the kitchen doorway, barefoot, expression blank. The laptop screen lit the room between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed, not like a guilty man, like an annoyed director whose actor had missed a cue. "You weren't supposed to see that." My chest hurt. "Who was at dinner?" "My father couldn't come." "So you hired someone?" "I handled a difficult situation." "You hired a man to pretend to be your father at our engagement dinner." Nathan rubbed his face. "I knew how important it was to you. To meet your family. To feel like everything was normal. Normal. That word made me laugh once, sharp and ugly. "Was your mother acting too?" His eyes flicked away. That was answer enough. I thought I had reached the bottom of it. I thought the betrayal was that Nathan had lied about one dinner. I was wrong. Because when I said I wanted the truth, Nathan didn't panic. He negotiated. "Let's sleep," he said. "Tomorrow we'll talk like adults." "No. We talk now. There are things you don't understand." "Then explain them." He looked at the laptop, then at me. "My real father is complicated." "Complicated how?" "He's not someone I wanted near you." That was the first answer. And immediately it became a bigger question. If his father was so dangerous, why fake a reunion at all? I asked him that. Nathan's voice softened. "Because your parents kept asking about him. Because your aunt made that comment about family background. Because every time we talked about the wedding, I could see you wondering why you'd never met him." I had wondered, but I had never demanded it. He had built a lie to answer a question I had barely asked. "Where is your real father?" I said. Nathan looked exhausted. "Alive." That word landed strangely, because he had never said his father was dead. But the way he said alive made it sound like a threat. The next morning, Nathan went to work early. He kissed my forehead before he left. "I love you," he whispered. I lay still until the door closed. Then I opened the cloud folder again. The dinner assets folder was gone. Nathan had deleted it remotely, but he forgot something. The invoice had downloaded automatically when I opened it. I found it in my downloads folder. Then I found the agency name. I called from a block number and pretended to be confirming details for a future booking. The woman who answered was polite until I mentioned Grant Holly's. "Oh yes," she said. "He said the family event went well, aside from one small slip." My hand tightened around the phone. "Did the client book anyone else?" A pause. "I'm sorry, I can't disclose client details." "Anyone else, not just him." My skin prickled. At dinner, Nathan's mother had been there. His father had been fake, but there had been another couple too. Nathan introduced them as his godparents, Paul and Irene, old family friends who had known him since diapers. They had brought a silver photo frame as an engagement gift. They had cried during the toast. I had hugged them goodbye. I searched their names in the cloud folder. Nothing. Then I searched the casting agency invoice number. A second file appeared in my email attachments from a message Nathan had forwarded me weeks earlier by accident. It was hidden in a thread about floral deposits. One attachment. Talent summary. I opened it. Grant Holly's father. Vivian Reed, mother's close friend. Alan Pike, godfather. Celeste Rowan, godmother. The woman I knew as Nathan's mother was not listed, so his mother was real. Everyone else had been rented. I felt like the apartment shifted beneath me. Why would a man with a real mother hire an entire family circle? And why had his mother agreed to sit there and watch? That night, I didn't confront him. I called his mother. Her name was Sandra. She answered on the fourth ring, voice cautious. "Is Nathan with you?" "No." Silence. I said, "I know about Grant Holly's." Her breathing changed. I told him this would happen. "Why did you go along with it?" "Because Nathan said it was only dinner." Only dinner? He said you were asking questions. I wasn't asking enough. Sandra began to cry, quietly, like someone who had learned to do it without being heard. Please don't marry him until you know everything. My stomach dropped. Know what? I can't be the one to tell you. You sat across from me while a stranger pretended to be your ex-husband. I know, so tell me why, she whispered, because Richard Vale isn't Nathan's father. For a few seconds, I didn't understand. Then every story Nathan had told me folded in on itself. Richard didn't abandon him. Richard didn't miss birthdays. Richard didn't cause the wound Nathan carried. Richard was not his father at all. Who is? I asked. Sandra didn't answer. Then she said, ask Nathan why he needed you to believe he came from a broken family instead of no family. The line went dead. No family. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, feeling the shape of the mystery change. This was the midpoint I never saw coming. Nathan had not hired an actor because his father was absent. He had hired an actor because the father he described did not exist. The abandonment story was not a cover for a bad man. It was a cover for an empty space. When Nathan came home, I had Sandra's words written on a note beside me. Ask Nathan why he needed you to believe he came from a broken family instead of no family. He saw it, his face drained. You talked to my mother. I talked to Sandra. His jaw tightened at the way I said her name. She is my mother. Is she? The room went still, then his eyes filled with tears. For one terrible second, I almost went to him, because I knew that look. I had loved that look, but now I didn't know if it belonged to him or to another role he had learned. He sat across from me. Sandra raised me, he said. That's not what I asked. No. She didn't give birth to me. The answer should have softened me. Instead, it opened another door. Why didn't you tell me you were adopted? Because people hear that and start digging. Digging for what? He looked down at his hands. My birth parents. Who are they? I don't know. That was the first thing he said that sounded almost true. Almost, I asked. Then why invent Richard? Nathan laughed bitterly. Because saying my father abandoned me sounds sad. Saying nobody knows who my father is sounds defective. The word made me flinch. Defective. It was ugly. It was also practiced, like he had said it to himself for years. I wanted to understand. That was the dangerous part. I said, you could have told me that. No, I couldn't. Why? Because you come from people who keep photo albums. I stared at him. He continued, voice low. You have grandparents in frames, parents who host Christmas, cousins who know what you looked like at 7. Every person in your life has a witness. I had Sandra, and even she looked at me like a responsibility she didn't ask for. That doesn't excuse hiring actors. I know, but he didn't say it like he knew. He said it like he knew that was the correct line. I asked him for one thing. All of it. No more edited version. So he told me a story. He said Sandra had been a young nurse. A woman came into the hospital under a false name, gave birth, and left before morning. Sandra became attached to the baby no one claimed. After months of foster complications, she adopted him. He said there were no records worth finding. He said he invented Richard in college because he was tired of people asking why he had no father. He said the lie grew with him. By the time he met me, Richard was already part of his life story. So the dinner was just to make the lie visible, I said. He nodded. I wanted that to be the end. I wanted the deepest truth to be shame. Shame can be understood. Shame can be healed. But then I remembered the invoice date, 3 weeks before the proposal. You planned this before you proposed. His eyes shifted again. There it was, another layer. Yes, he said. Why? Because I knew your father was going to ask. Ask what? Nathan swallowed. For a family meeting before he released the trust paperwork. I went cold. My grandmother had left me a trust, not enormous, but enough for a down payment on a house, enough to matter. My parents had always insisted on clear agreements before marriage because of it. Nathan knew that. Everyone knew that. My father never said he needed to meet your father. He said he wanted to know my family situation. That is not the same thing. Nathan leaned forward. I was trying to protect our future. No, you were trying to pass inspection. His silence confirmed it. For the first time, the lie was not romantic or wounded. It was strategic. The fake father was not only for my feelings, he was for my money. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house and told them everything. My father listened without interrupting. My mother cried silently. Then my father went to his office and returned with a folder. "I didn't want to show you this unless I had to," he said. Inside was a printout of a background report. Nathan had given my father permission for a basic financial review weeks earlier, saying he wanted to be transparent before marriage. Most of it looked clean. Too clean. No debt. No criminal record. Good credit. Stable employment. But there was one note my father had circled. Previous legal name. I stared at it. Nathan Vale had once been Nathan Cross. Another name. Another version. Another script. I drove home with the paper on the passenger seat like a live wire. Nathan was waiting in the apartment. "I know you went to your parents," he said. "I know you changed your name." His face closed. "That was legal." "I'm not asking if it was legal. I'm asking why." He stood very still. Then he said, "Because Sandra's last name was Cross before she remarried. That's not enough. It was a fresh start." "From what?" He didn't answer, so I said the name printed on the report. Nathan Cross. He flinched like I had slapped him. That was when I knew the name itself was a wound. Or a key. I searched it while he watched. For the first time, he looked afraid. Not sad. Afraid. An article came up from 11 years earlier. A charity scholarship scandal. A young man accused of fabricating family hardship for donations and college aid. No charges filed. Funds repaid anonymously. Name changed afterward. Nathan Cross. There was a photo, younger face, same eyes. I looked up at him. "You've done this before." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The room felt airless. "All these years," I said, "you weren't afraid I'd judge you for not having family. You were afraid I'd find out you knew how to sell a sad story." That was the first time he cried. Really cried. No polished lines, no careful posture. He sank into the chair and covered his face. "I was 18, he said. "I was desperate. You were caught. I paid it back. Someone paid it back." He looked up. I knew before he said it. Sandra. Sandra had rescued him then too, just like she had sat at that dinner. Just like she had protected the lie until it threatened to become my life. I asked, "Were you going to take money from me?" "No." "Were you going to use my trust? For us?" "That's not an answer." His face twisted. "We needed stability. I had stability before you." He stared at me then, and something hard passed across his face. There he was, not the wounded child. Not the charming fiancé. The man who believed my life was something he could step into if he played the right role. "You don't understand what it's like," he said. "No," I said. "I don't understand hurting people because you were hurt." He stood. "I built myself from nothing. And then you rented witnesses to prove it." That shut him up. For 3 days, I stayed with my parents. Nathan sent messages every few hours, first apologies, then explanations, then memories, then photos of us, then anger. "You're throwing away 3 years over one mistake." But it wasn't one mistake. It was an architecture, a life built with false beams. On the 4th day, Sandra came to see me. She looked older than she had at dinner. "I should have stopped him," she said. "Yes, I thought if he married someone good, he'd become good." That sentence broke something in me, because I realized Sandra had not protected me from Nathan. She had offered me to him like a cure. "What is the final truth?" I asked her. She looked confused. "The thing he still hasn't told me." Her eyes filled. So there was one. There is always one more locked door when someone has built a life out of locked doors. Sandra opened her purse and removed a small envelope. Inside was a copy of a letter, not old, recent, addressed to Nathan. From the hospital where he had been born. A records release had matched him with a birth relative. His biological father was alive. His name was not unknown. Nathan had found him 6 months earlier. 6 months, before the proposal, before the dinner, before the actor. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. Sandra looked down. "Because his father agreed to meet him. And he wasn't rich. He wasn't impressive. He was a retired mechanic with another family." I understood before she finished. Nathan had not invented a father because there was no father. He invented one because the real one didn't fit the story he wanted to sell. The deepest truth was not abandonment. It was rejection in reverse. Nathan had found his father and decided he wasn't good enough, so he cast a better one. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. The expensive watch. The polished voice, the careful regret. The father at dinner was not Nathan's wound. He was Nathan's fantasy. A father designed to impress my family, soften me, and make Nathan look like a man who had overcome pain with grace. I asked Sandra for the real father's name. She hesitated. Then she gave it to me. I didn't contact him. I didn't need to pull another innocent person into the wreckage. I had enough truth. When I met Nathan one last time, I chose a public cafe, not the apartment, not somewhere filled with our things. He looked terrible. For once, I believed that part. I placed the ring on the table. He stared at it. Please don't do this. I know about your biological father. His eyes closed. Sandra had warned him, or maybe he had always known the last truth would surface. He didn't want me, Nathan said. That's not what happened. You don't know. I know you met him once, found out he lived a normal life, and decided normal wasn't useful. His face hardened. He had 3 kids, a wife, a house full of pictures. You know what he said to me? He said he was sorry. Sorry. Like that fixed anything. It didn't have to fix anything. He was nobody. No, I said. He was real. That was the word that ended us. Real. Nathan could survive anger. He could argue with betrayal. He could explain shame. But reality left him nowhere to perform. I slid the ring closer to him. I loved you, I said. Not your fake father, not your tragic story. You, but you didn't trust that being real would be enough. His voice cracked. It wasn't enough before. I'm sorry for that. He reached for my hand. I moved it away. But you made sure I never got to choose the truth. You only let me choose a character. He cried then, quietly. I did too. Leaving someone you love does not feel like triumph at first. It feels like walking out of a burning house with smoke still in your lungs. The consequences came slowly. My father froze all trust discussions. The wedding deposits were canceled. Nathan's agency contract surfaced when my parents' attorney requested reimbursement for expenses tied to fraudulent misrepresentation. The casting agency, eager to avoid being dragged into anything, confirmed the booking. Grant Holly sent me a short email through the agency. He said he had been told it was a therapeutic family reconciliation exercise and had no idea I was being deceived. I believed him. Actors perform. Nathan lied. Sandra called once more. I didn't answer. Then she sent a message. I failed you. I failed him too. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it. Some truths are too heavy to hold and too important to throw away. A month later, I returned to the apartment with my father and 2 boxes. Nathan had already moved out. On the kitchen counter, he had left the framed photo from the engagement dinner. The fake father smiling. The fake godparents glowing. Sandra looking like a woman trapped inside her own silence. Nathan with his arm around me. Me, smiling at a family that did not exist. I took the photo out of the frame. For a moment, I thought about tearing it up. Instead, I folded it and put it in the box with the ring receipt, the invoice, and the printed headshot. Not because I wanted to remember him, because I wanted to remember myself. The version of me who noticed one wrong name and did not let love talk her out of listening. Months later, my mother asked if I regretted investigating. I thought about that dinner. The candlelight, the wine, the man lifting his glass. Kevin, one wrong name in a room full of wrong people. No, I said. I regret that there was something to find. That was the honest answer. I still believed Nathan had been wounded. I still believed parts of him had loved me, but love mixed with control becomes a script, and I was done playing my part. The last thing I heard about him came from Sandra in a letter I almost didn't open. She said Nathan had finally contacted his biological father again. No performance, no expensive restaurant, no invented history, just coffee. She didn't ask me to forgive him. She didn't ask me to come back. She only wrote one line at the end. You were the first person who made him face the truth without offering to carry it for him. I folded the letter and placed it in the same box as the photograph. Then I closed the lid. For the first time in months, I felt something lighter than grief. Not joy yet. Not victory exactly, something quieter. Freedom, because the truth had cost me a wedding, but the lie would have cost me my life.